everyone, and welcome back to my channel. I'm not even going to apologize for the children's noises anymore. I think I've accepted they're just part of my videos now. It's like impossible to record without them, so I heard them earlier. I don't know if they stopped now, but it's just always here. So today I'm going to be talking about, they're kind of two separate cases, but they are linked to each other. So we're going to be talking about Kimberly Medina and Degan Medina. I hope that it's not going to be too confusing of a case, but I think I have it laid out fairly chronologically. So we're starting with Kimberly Medina. Kimberly was 19 years old when she went missing on October 29th of 1996 in Aurora, Colorado. She was married to a man named Michael Medina, who was 25 years old, and they had two small daughters together. I think like 7 months old and 2 years old or something, like very, very young children. On the night of October 29th, Kimberly and Michael were supposed to have dinner at a restaurant with Kimberly's parents and her 12-year-old sister. And afterwards, his sister was doing a performance in school, and they were all supposed to go to that. But Kimberly and Michael never showed up for that, and of course, for her 12-year-old sister, this was very upsetting because she wanted her sister to be there. And then the next morning, things got even a little stranger when Michael called Kimberly's parents and asked them if Kimberly had spent the night there, which she hadn't, and they were like, well, what's going on? So he said that when they were supposed to go to the restaurant that night, they had a fight and kind of parted ways, and he assumed that she had gone to her parents' house for the night just to get away from him, and that she would be back the next day, but that wasn't the case. He then called her job. She worked at the local airport, and she hadn't shown up for her shift that day either. So police talked to Michael and asked him about what happened the last time he saw his wife, and he said that it was around 10 p.m. the night before. They had gotten into an argument, and she said that she was going to the local gas station to buy cigarettes. Now, they used a cadaver dog, or a bloodhound as they called it, but I'm guessing it's the same as a cadaver dog. And he actually tracked her scent to the gas station and a little bit further than that, which would indicate that at least part of Michael's story was true, that that was where she was going. However, they looked at surveillance footage of the gas station and never saw her on it. So they thought it was quite possible that she had been kidnapped and taken in a car past the gas station, and so that's why the dog tracked her scent there, but they didn't actually see her. Police then questioned her co-workers and found that it was possible that she was having an affair with her supervisor. So they asked the supervisor, and he admitted it. He said that they had been seeing each other and that they were actually supposed to meet up that night at the gas station, which police thought was a little bit suspicious. They were like, well, this is the last place, essentially, that someone knew she was going to, that her scent was tracked to, and you were going to meet her there. But they brought him in for questioning. He was very cooperative, gave them all the information they required. He took a polygraph test and passed, and he was ultimately cleared as a suspect. So police then took another look at her husband, Michael, after they learned that she was afraid of him and was actually planning to file for divorce. He claimed that he didn't know Kimberly was having an affair. He did admit that their marriage had problems, but he wasn't aware that she was planning to divorce him. He said, though, that she had run away before because she couldn't handle the responsibility of being a mother. And he was kind of trying to make it seem as though that's probably what she did this time. She just ran away. But her family was like, no way. She was so devoted to those kids. She would never leave the kids behind. Michael also refused to take a polygraph test. However, there was no evidence that Kimberly was met with foul play. They never found a body. They never really found anything of her. They couldn't locate her. It was possible that she had walked away, even though no one believed that, but there was just no evidence towards her anywhere. So they ultimately had to let Michael go. After this, Michael packed up all his stuff, took the kids, and moved away. Kimberly's family searched for a really long time to find him. They ultimately did. I don't know if they did or if police did, but it turned out that he moved over 200 miles away to start a new life. Now, this was not illegal. He was a free man. He had custody of the kids. He was perfectly allowed to take them wherever he wanted. It was then that he met 18-year-old Becky, and they started a relationship together. She said that he was a very loving man and that he was very protective of his children, and she kind of fell in love with the children very early on. They were very sweet kids. She became very enamored with them. She said that after a year, they asked if they could call her mom, but they were really very, very little at this point, and I'll get back to that a little bit later. But they weren't really aware of the fact that she wasn't their mom. I found that a bit strange because she said they asked if they could call me mom, but they also believed that she really was their mom. So I think they were too young to remember later on that she came into their life at a later stage. She did ask Michael about his former wife, and he just said that she left for cigarettes one day and never came back, and he would always cry when he would tell that story. So essentially within the house, Crystal was never talked about, and she raised those kids as her own. After 6 years together, they had a little boy together named Degan. Now, following their son's birth, Michael began to drink heavily. He also had a gambling addiction, which left them in a lot of debt. And he started physically abusing Becky. She ended up taking their son and leaving. Like, she wasn't going to stand for that. She didn't really recognize him anymore, and she left. It was at this point that the two girls discovered that Becky wasn't their real mom. Like, they believed for the 6 years that she was there that she was, but because she left with Degan but wasn't allowed from him to take the kids, he had to explain to them that actually she wasn't their real mom. Now, I don't like using that term because I am a firm believer of nurture versus nature. I don't think having a kid makes you a parent. I think raising a kid makes you a parent. So I will say, to me, she was their mom. But, you know, for the purpose of this case, I'm going to say she wasn't their real mom. And he told the kids that their real mom had disappeared. Now, Becky and Michael did come to an agreement that she was allowed to still have the girls. They shared custody over Degan. They did, like, I think it was 1 day each or a couple of days each. It was pretty evenly spread, and that each time she could also have the girls. Or at least not have them, but see them. Every time she would come to drop Degan off, she would be allowed to spend some hours with the girls. Now, every time she would come by, he would beg her to come back. But she said that she wasn't planning to. She had gotten a job now. She was completely independent. And she made it very clear to him that that was not going to happen. So on May 20th of 2005, she went to drop off Degan. He was asleep in his car seat, so she brought the car seat into the house, put him on the couch, and Michael then locked the door. He pulled a knife out of his pants. He had duct tape, gloves, handcuffs, and rope on the table. And he said to her, "You should never have left me." And he threatened the life of their son and said that he had to kill him. Now, Becky thought that he was just trying to intimidate her, and he kept saying to him, "You would never do that. You love him." And he said, "I will, and I have before. I got away with it." And he then told her the whole story of how he killed Kimberly. He said that when Kimberly was at work that day, he went to a deserted field and dug a hole. When she got home from work, he convinced her to go for a drive with him and the kids. So they all got in a car together. And while the kids were asleep in the car, they arrived at this field. They got out, and he then killed her and buried her there. He then, on his way home, disposed of all the evidence, all while his kids were sleeping in the car. Becky told him that she was trying to get out of this. She was trying to somehow make him let them go. So she said that her aunt was expecting her, and that if she didn't show up, she would raise an alarm. And Michael said, "Well, you're free to go," but he's not. And she didn't really know what to do. I also want to point out that at this point, they had been held by Michael for 12 hours. This wasn't like a quick 10-minute discussion and then she left. They had been there for 12 hours. She was convinced that he would never hurt Degan and that he was trying to hurt her. So she saw no other way out than to leave the house and go get help. So she drove straight to her aunt's house, who at the time worked with the sheriff's office. Her aunt immediately convinced her to go to the sheriff, and they set up a team to set up a perimeter around the house. They tried to do this very quietly so that he wouldn't notice, but he called her and said that she shouldn't have blabbed on him, that he knew that she went to the sheriff, and that she shouldn't have done that because now he had no choice but to kill Degan. The SWAT team eventually infiltrated the house, but they discovered that there was nobody there. They'd actually been watching an empty house for hours because Michael and the kids took off hours before and essentially fled. He took the kids to a playground, and that is where he called Becky from several times, saying, "You shouldn't have called police, you shouldn't have told on me." His oldest daughter overheard the last call between him and Becky where they were arguing, and after that call, he told them that him and Degan were going on a little trip, and that she had to call their uncle and he would come pick the girls up, and they had to stay behind. Now, very sadly, later that day, the body of 16-month-old Degan was found in an asparagus field by the owner of that field, and it wasn't very far from the playground, and he had drowned. A huge manhunt was set up to find Michael. They were able to capture him a few hours later. The owner of the property where Degan's body had been found confirmed that it was Michael he had seen on his property earlier. Now, Michael claimed that Degan's death was an accident, that he fell into the water when he was distracted, and that he drowned accidentally. Which, of course, nobody believed. I mean, he threatened his life multiple times. He took off with him on his own without his daughters being there. But I think it was hard for them to prove otherwise, to be honest. So, he ended up pleading guilty resulting in death and was sentenced to 48 years in prison for Degan's death. I don't know why. Well, I do. I think they gave him a plea deal because they had a very hard time proving that he actually killed Degan. Now, that, of course, leaves the case of Kimberly. Following Michael's conviction, Becky was actually given custody of the two girls, which I really, really like. I mean, for them, she was their mother, and I think Kimberly's family was okay with that too, because, you know, she was raising them. After he went to prison, police took a closer look at Becky's statement about Michael confessing to what he did to Kimberly, and they didn't really have any evidence against him. They never found Kimberly's body, so they didn't have even a body to prove that she had been killed. But they were heavily relying on Becky testifying in court and the jury believing her, essentially. Some of the details of Michael's story to Becky were very, I guess, could circumstantially kind of tie him to it. So he said that it was snowing that day, which it was on the night that she disappeared. He said that she was wearing a Mickey Mouse sweater, which she was. So those are all little details that are very significant, but it wouldn't have been enough to tie him to anything that happened to her without Becky's testimony. And she did. She said that it was extremely difficult because Kimberly's daughters, who she now had custody of, were both there. She said that part of that was excruciating, but part of that kept her going because she wanted to get justice for them. She said that Kimberly's family was in court, which was really hard for her to see. But she gave her whole testimony, and the jury believed her. So, on November 15th, 2013, Michael was convicted of first-degree murder. He was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. His daughters had not spoken to him between 2005, essentially since he took off with Degan, and the trial. So they were there, they saw him for the first time in all that time. And he has never told Kimberly's family where he buried her body, and they don't think he ever will. So, they have a little bit of closure in that they know what happened to her, but they can't bury her. I do believe that they are now in her daughter's lives, which is also great because they hadn't seen her kids essentially since 1996. So for at least 9 years, they hadn't seen the kids, and they've said that they think Becky is an amazing woman and that they're happy that she is raising them. So I can't say that it has a happy ending in the end. I mean, I think it's great that they're family and that they're getting through this together. But how horrible. I mean, I feel incredibly bad, well, for everyone involved, but especially for the kids, because those two girls found out after 6 years that the woman they thought was their mother was not actually their mother, that their real mother had disappeared. Then they found out that their father had killed their little brother and had also killed their mother. I don't know how you even come back from something like that. I really don't. The whole time that I watched an episode on crime investigation on this case, and the whole time I was just like, they kept showing pictures of Degan, and I was like, oh my god, please do not tell me that he killed that boy. But I already knew where it was going. I'm just shocked. Killing your wife because, actually, he told Becky that he said to Kimberly that when he killed her, you should have never cheated on me. So he obviously knew that she was having an affair. And I think it's one thing to kill your wife in a bad marriage. And don't get me wrong, I'm not like, do it. It's horrible, but I think that's a different circumstance than killing your child. I don't know. The only reason he killed Degan obviously was to punish Becky. And that's something that I just don't understand. I don't understand how you can kill your own child purely out of spite for your partner. It is beyond me. Anyway, that's all there is in this case. This case made me really, really sad looking into it. And yeah. Anyway, that's all there is. So thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in my next